Thank you for inviting me today. There is a rumor that there will be a big shopping center erected at the central Harbourfront event square. Is this not contrary to what is meant by connecting the people to the water?
1, 2. Yeah, it's what we call the ground scraper. It's not a skyscraper, it's a ground scraper. It runs from, they will replace the post office, and it will go from the side of the post office to just close to the Star Ferry. It will be a deck, pedestrian deck, and on top of that will be about 3 towers, small, short towers, 50 meters high, yeah. That's what you're going to get there. Well, I'm sure there will be shopping in there, in the podium level. I'm sure there will be shopping. You want me to say anything else about it?
That a shopping center probably will not be like unique shops like in Vancouver.
No, but it will not be. It's not. There's still a lot of space left. I mean, if you saw the last picture that Peter did, but I think the most critical bit about that design of that building is that's the building that's going to take people down to ground level. So if you take everything that is elevated level, Exchange Square, IFC, and the walkways, and to get over the segregators that we cannot get rid of, and all the major road work and the bus terminuses and so on, then this is where you come back down to ground level. So that building has to be very well designed, that it works both at elevated and at the ground level. And how that is going to be designed is going to be most critical. If it's poorly designed as a commercial facility, then it's not going to be good. But if it's well designed, then that is actually what we're going to need to connect the ground and the elevated.
Yes, I think the ground scraper found its way into the Harbourfront plan in our original planning study. It went over 2 years in the late 1980s. In fact, the plan itself for the whole of the foreshore of central Wan Chai and Causeway Bay had several objectives. And we tried to incorporate in that almost all of the things that I've just been talking about. It had embayments, it had maritime museums, water basins, things that pushed out into the harbour and things that came in. It was actually later abandoned partly because of the protection of the harbour ordinance and partly because it was really found that not so much reclamation was going to be necessary. But the interesting thing, I guess, was that 2 of those components along the waterfront were actually gazetted. The first was the Hong Kong Convention Centre, so that's why it stuck out into the harbour in a rather lonely way for so long. And also the airport project where you now see IFC. And the idea of the ground scraper was essentially, as Paul said, to kind of stick out and step down. But I think the most interesting thing, and again, Paul just picked it up a moment ago, is how it's designed. And I think one of the roles of the Harbourfront Authority need to be able to take that and to use design parameters. It's something we're very afraid of in Hong Kong. You know, we think if we put any kind of parameter or control on a private development, the private developer is going to run away and not be bothered. I mean, of course, you don't want gigantic shopping centres, but you do want, as I tried to show in some of the previous slides, you know, areas of activity, restaurants, cafes, small shops. What's wrong with that, really? Just about every other harbourfront I can think of, from Sydney to Auckland to San Francisco, has an abundance of these things, and pedestrians enjoy them and walk around them. You know, so you have a holistic experience of things, not just walking along flat promenade to look at the harbour.
Sorry, the only thing to add is that the existing elevated walkway that takes you right down to the ferry piers obviously goes, and this is seen as a part substitute for that. Yep.
Thank you. Now, may I ask the panel, we talk about planning the waterfront for people and also with people. And Nick, I remember you saying you need public acceptance. And Peter, you also mentioned about the process. That's not the best of the process. And of course, Brenda, you have been doing a lot with public engagement in this particular area. Can you, any one of you or every one of you share a little bit of your vision or your experience? How can we get it done in a much better way so that we can collect and channel all this energy into something concrete?
Well, let me be controversial. I think we have to move away from the consensus model. I think in reality, everything we're talking about, there'll always be varying opinions, and there will be potentially a fairly strong minority view. But I think in many of the things we want to achieve, when we get a clear majority or a serious majority, we're going to have to move forward. And that means a change in model, because government's got itself hung up on achieving consensus. It's a substitute for democracy, if you like. It consults and consults, and that it feels better when it's done it. But I don't think we're going to move things forward if we stick to consensus.
No, I'm happy to oppose that. I think that we have a great example of very good consensus building and consultation. It's called the District Urban Renewal Forum done in Kowloon City. The organization was the URA, and the secretariat was the planning department, and there were professionals, planners on it, and the community participated, and a good plan came out. Implementation is stuck because we have no implementation agent other than the aspects that are going to the URA, which is some of the redevelopment of the buildings. So it is all about having a good process, and I think that we need to do that for our waterfront districts, work with the community. We've done a great job in the last 10 years making sure that we don't have overdevelopment at the waterfront. We're basically, because of the Harbourfront Enhancement Committee, safeguarded a lot of space along the water and made sure that they're not building on it. And that's a big change for a city that for 150 years grew by reclamation to actually not have that land lost to development. And now we just got to be very, very careful with what we're going to build on it. And if we keep it open space and see where people start walking on the grass, and we can make decisions in the future, it's better than making very quick decisions about lots of development. So let's keep it open, let's keep it flexible, let's keep things connected, and then work with the community and see what they can do. But if people come up with good ideas, innovative, creative stuff, and they're big grand plans, then you take them to that community and discuss it with them. And then you can see whether there's an appetite for it. But to just say that we're going to push through what we have today. What we have today is prepared by the planning department. It's an outline zoning plan, and it's not an exciting plan for the waterfront. It's an outline zoning plan. And that's what we're going to get here on Kai Tak, because the people that did the plan in 2006 are not the people that are responsible for the results in the future. They're not responsible for the outcomes, which is people happily drinking beer on the waterfront, jogging, running in shade. They're not responsible for any of that. They are only responsible for getting the plan passed by the town planning board and how much GFA was in there and generated, and to make sure there was a broad land use plan so that the engineers could put the pipes in and could put the roads in. That's all that they were responsible for. Nobody is responsible for the outcomes, unless we get an EKO, as we got now, coming up here. So.
Well, I think I'm in the middle there. I do agree with Nick about the consensus approach. I'll stay well clear of the URA. It's one of my top issues when I'm asked to talk about planning, really. But you know, as I often say, you know, we have urban renewal authority. What we need is a regeneration authority, and what we actually have in practice is a redevelopment authority. And I don't think I would anyway point to the Kwun Centre as being a success, not by my standards. But you know, I can give you an example, you know, that relates again to the boardwalk. You know, we did the study for that. It took nearly three or 4 years to do, not full time, but part time, for planning department. It went through 3 separate public consultations, all of which gave it the thumbs up. It was presented to the Harbour Commission, I should think about 4 years ago, Nick, in its early stages. As a result, government did a detailed engineering study, which has proved it's perfectly okay, but we're still stuck. I mean, we actually don't know. We are now, not we personally, but the consultative process is going through a program of yet more public consultation to ensure that it can be justified in terms of overriding public need, which is very, very, very difficult. Paul talked earlier a little bit like that, but public need is a very difficult thing to define. You know, is it a need, as we would like to see it, building good waterfronts that are connective, or is it a need to get between A and B? And if there's an alternative, then government could just as easily turn around and say, well, you know, we're not interested in this. So I think, you know, we are caught on the horns of a dilemma in a sense. And I think, as I was trying to say in the talk, we do have to be a little bit bolder, and we have to push initiatives that the public never dreamed that they could actually have, and enthuse and excite people. You know, we do have this tendency at the moment to look rather gloomily. People are so afraid of negative public reactions for all sorts of reasons, of course. But I don't think we go anything like far enough in terms of really trying to show people really what the full potential of the Harbourfront can actually be.
I finally have a chance to get the mic. I think we don't need to take building consensus so literally, because it would not be possible to have 100% consensus. But what our office is always doing is that we want to know what people think. And so outside the more formal type of public engagement activities, actually our door is always open. So whoever wants to tell us or let us know what they think, what they feel, what suggestions that they want to make. Jeff will know. Jeff is from the cruise terminal. Every time when he has an idea, he just sends us an email, and whether we can do something about what, and Paul, I might be receiving more emails from you, I guess, so that we actually know what people think and feel what they feel, and that's important. And sometimes we have to take sometimes a hard line against some opposition, perhaps, as long as we have maybe the majority people think in that way. We have to have the determination to push forward, and that's what we are doing.
Thank you, Brenda. Nick, you still want to add to that?
Well, only just that to me, consensus equals compromise. And if you're going to reach consensus, then you're going to have to make compromises. So I agree with you on that. Just throw something else in on public engagement. I think we need to take public engagement independent. In Hong Kong, many cities are doing this now. They have a public engagement center, and it's independently funded, and they do the reviews. So it's not the people who have a vested interest in the outcome, if you like, don't do the engagement. This independent agency does the engagement and comes up with the answer, comes up with what the views are. And I think that's something, a model that we perhaps may look at for the future of Hong Kong.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I can take one more question from the floor. The last one? No? Yeah, I know. There are other things, more important things before lunch. No? Now, if that's the case, with that, I want to thank once again the panel for their very, inspiring talk and sharing. Please give them a round of applause.